Hello, it is Saturday, December 12th, 2015, and welcome to the Multifarious Man Podcast, Episode 12, Never Tell Me the Odds. As always, I'm your host, Jay Vincent. You can follow me on Twitter at Multifarious Man or on Facebook at Multifarious Man Podcast 2015. And the website for the show and blog is multifariousman.com. On today's show, in celebration of the release of Star Wars: The Force Awakens, I am going to tell you about my favorite of the 6 Star Wars movies. So basically, of the 6 existing movies, episodes 1 through 6, I am going to tell you from worst to first which order I placed them in. And also, don't forget, at the end of today's episode, as promised, I'm going to let you hear my rap skills. Now, keep in mind, they need to be compared to other old school fathers with teenagers that doubt their lyrical skills. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Numerous and varied, greatly diverse and manifold. All the things I want to say that never been told. Dina Sinatra to Drake and Pharrell. When I'm listening to this week, you can never tell. Bogey and Bacall, even Meryl Streep. The devil wears Prada, even the big sleep. It doesn't matter where you stand. I'm the multifarious man.
All right, welcome back to the show. And now, what am I reading and watching and listening to this week? First up, what I'm reading. I'm back to reading another Kate Daniels novel. This, of course, is by the husband and wife team that go by the name of Ilona Andrews, and I'm reading book 6 in the Kate Daniels series called Magic Rises. Now, so far I'm liking this book because it's like your typical road picture. So you have characters that you've gotten to, love and learn about in the first novels, and here it's going to put them in the situation where they're not on their home turf, they're not in their home city. They need to actually get on a ship and go over to Europe because they've been pulled into a conflict and they're supposed to act as mediators. Of course, they all know it's a trap and they're going anyway. So, of course, you bring your favorite characters, you take them out of what they're used to, put them somewhere else, introduce some other characters, and just mix it all together and see what happens. So, just like in television shows, when they do that, interesting things can happen. So far, so good. Now, what am I watching? What I'm watching is I've kind of gotten back into this show, and I had gotten away from it for a while. It's called Castle, and it's on ABC. Check your local listings. The reason I had gotten away from the show is it basically last season, in my opinion, it lost some of its momentum because, of course, it took its 2 main characters who for the first, 5, 6, 7 seasons of the series, had flirted on and off. You knew they would end up getting together, but then, sure enough, they got them together and got them married. Now, Castle stars Nathan Fillion from Firefly fame, and as enjoyable the show is, which is about a writer who has a female detective in New York, on the New York Police Department as his muse, so he's been creating characters based on her. And it all started with him doing ride-alongs, and of course, years later, they end up getting married. This season, they changed things up. They kind of pushed them apart. They're not working together directly. The main character, Castle, is working as a actual private eye now. So it's kind of brought back to the series the thing that kind of made it great in the beginning, which is the chemistry between the 2 main characters in, fighting to stay apart while fighting to stay together. So it's got kind of its creative mojo back, and I am enjoying the show once again. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. There's plenty of seasons available. It's probably available on some streaming service if you need to catch up to the season that it's at now. It's, I believe, season 9. Definitely worth giving it a shot. Again, it's called Castle. Now, what I'm listening to, I discovered this young lady, probably heard it the first time on Beats Radio on Apple, and then I'm starting to hear it more and more. And it's a young lady out of Canada. I believe she's probably about 19 years old. Her name is Alicia Cara. She just released a new album, or her debut album, called Know It All. And you've probably heard the single that's been getting a lot of play on the radio called Here. She has a very distinct sound, very playful, not young, not too grown up, but I think she's got a nice flavor and a nice feel to her voice. So give it a try. New album called Know It All, and the artist is Alicia Cara. And that's it for what I am reading, watching, and listening to. And when I return, we will talk about my Star Wars movies. Well, they're not mine, I don't own them, but Star Wars movies in my order from worst to first. All right, we're back on episode 12 of the Multifarious Man podcast. Never Tell Me the Odds. So, Star Wars. We're now, coming up this week on the 17th of December, they're going to release episode 7, which is known as Star Wars The Force Awakens. Now, if you grew up like I did in the 70s, the first 3 movies were just known by their names. They were known as Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. And it wasn't until later on, when they released what's known as the prequels, that they really started talking about episodes. So the original Star Wars movies, in terms of the ones that were released first, are now known as Episode 4, Star Wars Episode 4, or also known as A New Hope, then Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back, Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, and the prequels that were released later are Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. So, if you know anything about anything, you know that there's no way that the prequels can eclipse the first 3 movies that were released. So I'm not even going to pretend that any of those 3 made it into the top 3. However, they're not necessarily in the order you may think they're in, but let's get started. So, starting with number 6, and I'm sure most people will agree with this, my least favorite of all the Star Wars movies are, of course, The Phantom Menace. Now, mind you, when this came out, it had been many years since the last Star Wars movie. So you had your last fix with Return of the Jedi, which came out in 1983. So when this movie came out, I want to say around 1999, it was time, a fan or anybody that was a Star Wars fan was, craving something new. So you were excited about it. And I distinctly remember when the first previews and trailers started coming out. Now, this was in the AOL days and dial-up. I had to download the trailer through Apple, I think, had a link, and the download took probably about a day and a half through dial-up and took forever to watch. So as every little bit was coming through, I'd play it about 20 seconds and then have to wait another 20 seconds. Then finally, when it was downloaded, I probably played that download, and played that preview and the trailer probably about 500 times in anticipation. And let's just say it was not, what we were looking for. So if you don't know anything about the story, you're probably living under the rock or a rock or another planet, or for that matter, you're probably living in a galaxy far, far away. But this one started with a young Anakin Skywalker as a little kid. Like it or not, the characters just weren't that interesting. You did have a young Obi-Wan Kenobi who was interesting. And they introduced a character named Jar Jar Binks, which will go down in history as the worst movie character ever, probably, and almost single-handedly destroyed the franchise as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'm not even going to get into it. I just really didn't like this movie. The only saving grace is that this movie, Phantom Menace, at the end, has probably the greatest lightsaber duel in the history of all Star Wars movies. So this is, greater than Luke fighting off against Darth Vader versus Obi-Wan Kenobi. This, of course, is with Ben Kenobi, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul fighting, and phenomenal stunt coordination. Ray Park as Darth Maul. And if you haven't seen it, or if you have to watch the movie, I recommend just skipping ahead to that battle so you can get the movie over. But that's not the only saving grace. That's enough of Phantom Menace. Next up, Revenge of the Sith. This is episode 3, and it, the circle was complete. This is when Anakin Skywalker officially became, sorry, spoiler alert, Darth Vader. So, I mean, it's just better than Phantom Menace, but not by that much. So, that's probably the only reason it's number 5, because it basically just got to the end. And at the end, you actually got to hear James Earl Jones's voice as Darth Vader. So that probably bumped it up above Phantom Menace. Now, number 4 on the list, of course, that leaves you with Attack of the Clones, which is episode 2. The only exciting thing about this one is you discover that all of the clones, which were the precursor of the Stormtroopers, were cloned after Jango Fett, who turns out to be Boba Fett, famous bounty hunter from Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. It was his father, Jango Fett, that they used to make all the clones. So that's why that one rates as number 4. Wasn't the best movie in the world. And again, I think George Lucas got a little bit off track, with his whole midichlorians and everything like that. And probably the only reason I like this one as much as I do is because it's Attack of the Clones. And later on, they released a cartoon movie, The Clone Wars, and had a series, which the series, The Clone Wars, if you haven't seen it, 6 seasons, it's the best Star Wars that they've had since Return of the Jedi. So give it a shot if you haven't. So there you go. That's 6, 5, and 4. Phantom Menace, Revenge of the Sith, and Attack of the Clones. Now, the top 3. Of course, these 3 are the classics. And as far as I'm concerned, they're just great movies, and they're just what make this franchise what it is. So, starting with number 3, in terms of my favorite Star Wars movies, is Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi, I distinctly remember going to see this on a Sunday night in 1983 with my father and my sister. And the opening scene where Luke is going to rescue Han Solo, and he gets captured, and he's on a, Jabba the Hutt slave barge. And, suddenly, you're like, all right, he's claiming he's a Jedi, whatever, he gets captured. And then suddenly R2-D2 shoots him his lightsaber, and he flips through the air, and he just goes crazy. And you realize, man, Luke really is a Jedi now. So that opening of that movie, phenomenal. And, after, events that happened in Empire Strikes Back, it just made it so much worth it. So that's why that's number 3 on my list. Love this movie. Saw it with my sister and my father, and really enjoy it. Still watch it today. And my youngest child, it's her favorite movie, probably because of the Ewoks, but it doesn't really matter why. Great movie. Number 2 is the movie that started it all, and as far as I'm concerned, it'll always be known as Star Wars, not A New Hope, not anything else, not Episode 4, just simply Star Wars. And the reason I love it so much is because, well, it was just nothing like it when it came out. Nothing you've ever seen was anything like this. It was exciting. It was adventure, and and in your mind, you thought, yeah, I could be Luke, I could be Han Solo. Who didn't want to go up against the evil empire? Who didn't want to rescue the princess? And it has a special place in my heart is because without it, you wouldn't have the Star Wars franchise. So that's why the first one, Star Wars, is number 2 on my list. Now, last but not least is, of course, my favorite, and it's probably in my top 2 or 3, not only sci-fi movies, but it's definitely in the top 10 of my favorite movies of all time, and that would be The Empire Strikes Back. And the reason this one stands up is because the story, the script, the action, everything about it, it was a very mature movie, and I'd never seen anything like it. As a little kid, I'd never seen a movie that ended like that with a cliffhanger where one of the heroes is, for all he's dead. Han Solo is frozen in carbonite. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if they're going to be able to save him. But I just remember just being stunned seeing it in movie theaters and just not knowing what's going to happen. And then you had to wait 4 years until you knew what ended up happening in Return of the Jedi. So for me, the emotional resonance, the excitement of the opening battle on the ice planet of Hoth, Luke almost dying, you get introduced to Yoda. It's just, it had everything that you needed. And then, of course, the ending with the reveal of Darth Vader being Luke's father. Yes, I know, spoiler alert, get over it. If you're listening to this show, you've seen Star Wars before, so I'm sorry. So if not, I apologize. Shouldn't stop you from going out to watching the movies. But there you have it. Star Wars movies in the order I'm placing them in. I've seen all of the trailers and teasers for the Force Awakens. Really excited about it. I think J.J. Abrams was the right choice to direct it. He also revitalized the Star Trek franchise. And I just believe it. I just have good thoughts about this. So definitely go out and check it out. There you have it. That's my thoughts on Star Wars. Now, when we return, as promised, I know I've built it up. I'm going to let you hear, my rap skills. So sit back and relax, and we will return in a moment. All right, we are back, and now, without further ado, here is my rap. Now, I remind you, my daughter kind of laughed and scoffed and said, I don't have any skills, that I can't freestyle. Fine. I wrote this, so just to my daughter, if you're listening, and you're probably going to laugh when you listen to this, I don't care. Your pop's got a little bit of skills. I may be old, but I'm more old school than old. So sit back, and if everyone listening, hey, maybe you'll think this is hilarious, but here you go. Challenge accepted, my rap skills resurrected. You were thinking so lame, but he's not to be messed with. Old school record, rhyme inspector. Didn't know had skills till I came with a mic checker. No freestyle, I write my lyrics down. Ever since comments sold by the pound. No KRS-One, but I know how to boogie down. So keep your Drake singing and your hotline blinging, cause nothing but the realness is what I'm bringing. I got game, that's what I'm about. Multifarious dropping bars, drop the mic and I'm out. So there you have it. Multifarious man rapping, dropping bars, spitting lyrics. There you go. And if you don't know, now you know. That's it. Episode number 12 is in the can. So I hope everyone has a great week. go out and see Star Wars The Force Awakens. I'd love to hear everyone's feedback in either the next episode or the following episode after that, so episode 13 or 14. And yes, I will be releasing episodes on the 20th and then again on the 26th, the day after Christmas. So I'm going to probably record them early so that they will be available. That's it. Thank you for joining us. Again, this is the Multifarious Man podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Multifarious Man, and you can send me comments via email at multifarious.man.podcast@gmail.com. That's it. And as I always say, why be various when you can be multifarious?
Numerous and varied, greatly diverse and manifold. All the things I want to say that never been told. Dina Sinatra to Drake and Pharrell. When I'm listening to this week, you can never tell. Bogey and Bacall, even Meryl Streep. The devil wears Prada, even the big sleep. It doesn't matter where you stand. I'm the multifarious man.